You are watching Co-op for Two. I'm Jesse Reichler. We're broadcasting live from Champaign, Illinois on Monday around 11:30 p.m., October 4th, 2021. There may not be anyone watching. It's been a long time since we did a live stream. I say we. Greg has the night off. Greg does not like the live streams, does not like the channel update videos. So he's boycotting those, but that's fine. He needs his... There's certain things, Greg has certain rules and systems that he must follow, and we are happy to accommodate him. But I thought if I don't do another one of these live streams, I'll forget how to do it. There are a lot of moving parts, a lot of equipment that doesn't get used when we do recording. The cameras all get used, but they get used in a different way. They have to have their output turned off, etc. So it's just me. That means for all of you who may have tuned in for Lord of the Rings questions, you're kind of out of luck. Although I will make up answers if we want to play that game. Don't throw... All right, so but I'm going to talk to the channel if anyone shows up and Sue Park is here. Don't throw Greg under the bus. Well, that's what we kind of do. We throw each other under the bus regularly. This is a little life lesson, not to get into politics, but I'm of the opinion that better to teach people to be resilient. So Greg and I are throwing each other under the bus every week, and hopefully it builds a better person. There's a famous quote about, I'm sure I'll mangle it up, but it's, someone in the audience can tell me there's only one person, but it's actually a wonderful quote, and it says something like, the world breaks people, and some people get stronger in the broken places. So anyway, along that same vein. So let me tell you what I have planned for tonight. I'll just talk for a half hour. We'll talk about whatever, life, movies, Netflix, some games, Gen Con. Just gonna fill time like the old public access TV show style. And enjoy the fact that we have no bosses to please. We have no analytics to whatever. Anyway, so we'll talk for a half hour with whoever shows up. Doesn't matter if you like board games or not, we'll just talk. And then, since I got some sleep earlier in the day, what I'll do is, after about a half hour, I'll stop the live stream, and then I'll restart a new live stream, and I'll play the first case of, the first real case of Suspects. I played the intro case on the channel a little while ago and gave my initial first impressions. To sum up, I liked the system. I did not love the story. Perhaps if you want, we can talk about other board game YouTube channels. I just got this cup from this YouTube channel I watch called Nerd Shelves. These two, husband and wife, mostly they play board games, but they're cute. They're nice. It's fun watching them. So we could talk about YouTube channels, some that I watch for enjoyment, some that I watch for sort of the cringe-worthiness of it. We can talk about Gen Con. I've got some games, you can't see them here, but I brought out a couple of games from Gen Con that I picked up if we want to talk about them. this one here that I've got some thoughts on. We can talk about the videos. I mean, we probably should talk about a little bit about channel stuff, some of the videos that came out. But let's take a pause. I'll have some tea, and we can answer any questions. Sue Park says, am I looking forward to the Doom movie? I am looking forward to it. Everyone in my friend group here in Champaign, Illinois is really looking forward to it. So they have a thing at AMC theaters. There's 2 theaters in this town. There used to be a couple more, some local ones. 2 major theaters. One is an AMC, and one is called a GMC Phoenix. And Greg and his wife Jill love this Phoenix theaters, which the rest of us hate. It feels like they're a tax scheme. They're trying to go out of business. And the AMC is like a super deluxe luxury experience. They've got the soda machines that you can dial in any soda you want with like a million combinations. They're better. The popcorn's better. Everything's better about it. So I'm thinking maybe they have a thing where you can reserve the theater for a private group for like $150. So if you have 10 people or so, it's almost the same price. Now it's a little bit of a misnomer. You're not really reserving the theater. You're basically saying, for this showing, only my people can come to it, so no one else can buy tickets to it. So it's really, everyone's still mulling around the theater. It's not private. It's just no one else is going to be in that theater room except for you. So I was thinking that maybe we should do that, and maybe rent the room at the AMC before Greg and Jill start reserving tickets at the Savoy. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Dune. I read it. I listened to the audiobook, and it's okay. It's reasonable. It's got some cool stuff. The whole Fremen and jihad stuff is interesting, but for some reason it doesn't really capture me otherwise. And I thought the Lynch movie was quite good. I've seen that a couple times, and I'm not sure they really need to remake it from my standpoint. That was good enough, but I'll see it again. Is it going to be on HBO in addition to the theaters? I like watching movies at home. I'm very happy. I have a nice big TV. But there is something to be said for watching one of these big action, high budget movies in the theater. And so I'll probably go see that. I'll probably go see the new James Bond movie, even though I hate watch those. I think they're terrible. The writing is terrible and ridiculous. And I was just telling Greg, it's so crazy to watch these James Bond movies where he's walking around with a submachine gun in public, and they're like, whatever. And to compare that with like one of my favorite movies of all time, Day of the Jackal, which is a hour-and-a-half movie about a guy. The whole point of the movie is him just driving, trying to cross borders without getting detected. There's like 5 minutes of shooting. There's 5 minutes of shooting in the beginning of the movie, maybe 60 seconds, and then 60 seconds of shooting at the end of the movie. And that's it. And that's how I like my spy murder type of movies, with a little more stealth. Audiobook was solid. Really? Okay, so we disagree on that. I mean, the audiobook was good. There may be several different ones, but yeah, the story just doesn't do it terribly for me. But I could see if you read it as a kid for the first time. Not to say that you have to read it as a kid, but I'm just saying it's one of those things that if you were there at the time and the place when Dune came out, I can see it being special. Having watched the movies first and then read it, it doesn't feel that special to me. Should we stay with this topic of Netflix and movies? Sue Park, do you watch Netflix? Have you been watching that other stuff? I can't see. I'm not sure I saw The King. I saw The Man Who Would Be King, which is a great movie with Michael Caine, I believe. It's hard to do these on my own because no one will catch me. You know, Greg wants to do a movie review channel. And I went with Greg recently to help him run one of his shows, and he made a terrible mistake. Terrible movie mistake. It's almost always, like if you watch our videos, in almost every video, I'm like misremembering the name of a movie or an actor, and Greg almost always knows it. But Greg made a terrible mistake, which I will never let him forget. And as soon as the movie review channel comes up, I'll be mentioning it and telling it for a long time. Okay, what else? I'm trying to think of other movies. I made a couple notes here. So I just bought an espresso machine, I went right down the rabbit hole of espresso and coffee. And there's this YouTube guy named James Hoffman. He's got a channel. It's got like 24 million subscribers or whatever. Maybe it's not that high, but it's very high. And he does videos on coffee, and I use an AeroPress. I don't even like coffee, but I use an AeroPress, which makes pretty good coffee, I think. And but once I start researching some piece of equipment, it's very hard to veer off that track. I have to catch it early. Anyway, so I went and bought a nice grinder. Apparently grinding the beans to precise size is very important. Espresso is actually interesting. Here's a little lesson on espresso. The whole point of making espresso, it's pressurized. So you grind beans, you put it in a portafilter in a basket, you tamp it down, you put it under the espresso machine, which then sends pressurized water through it. And you'll get either a very bad, bitter, or sour drink, depending on how long it takes the water to get through those beans. And so a huge part of making good espresso is getting the grind exactly right for the beans you have. So when they talk about dialing in a shot, whatever, so you do lots of practice shots, you try at a little bit grind level. If it goes through too fast, that means your coffee grounds were too coarse. If it goes through too slowly and you don't get enough water, or it takes too long, then they were too fine. So you spend a lot of time adjusting the grind, and depending on how fresh the beans are, and if you get new beans, you have to change everything. So they're all like, everyone seems to agree, like, don't do it. Don't try to make your own espresso. Even this guy's got 24 million views. He does nothing but talk about coffee. He was like in this Barista Championship, and he's like, I don't have an espresso machine. It's too much trouble. It's like, what are you talking about? How can that be? He's like reviewing this $4,000 manual grinder. He's like, I don't have an espresso machine. What's the point? It's too much trouble. Anyway, but they did not convince me not to buy an espresso machine. They're all like, it's a hobby. Do you want to spend your whole life learning how to make espresso? But for me, that's sort of like, you're sort of daring me to try to learn about some new technology. And I'm also of the belief that there's sort of the more work you put into something, you're sort of magically imbuing it with some value, and you'll enjoy it more. So if it takes you a half hour to manually grind your coffee, if we imagine going back to the days where they had to manually hand grind each bean, whatever, the more work you have to do to get out something, possibly the more enjoyment. Like building furniture, you sit on that chair, you enjoy it more. I'm going to answer some of your comments, Sue Park, in a second here. It may just be you and me. Don't feel any pressure to stay around. Okay, so where was I going with this? Yes, okay. So they didn't convince me not to buy an espresso machine. But what would have convinced me, if someone had mentioned it, and you'd think I would pick this up on the videos, is how messy this damn thing is. Like, it frosts milk and it spatters milk everywhere. After the espresso is done, you got to knock it out. It's just a mess. The grinds are everywhere. So I'm not sure that espresso machine's going to stay with me. I love the AeroPress. It's like self-cleaning. That's the best part about it. So I'm still unsold on the espresso machine. Sue Park says, you routinely wear shirts from races. Ever run the Chicago Marathon? I have not run a marathon. There was a time when I was running a bunch of 10Ks, and that's the distance for me, 10K. I've got a body built for 5Ks and 10Ks. More than that, it feels unhealthy. It feels like I'm not going to survive. I can barely survive the 10Ks if I don't practice and train for it. You ran the marathon, Sue Park? Wow, that is. It feels like a different kind of person is built for for marathons. Like it feels like a whole different thing. That's not for me. I'm not. I mean, you could do it, but it feels like it would break you. We did. This is a good segue. So we went to Gen Con a couple weeks ago, and I thought I'd talk about it for people who haven't been, might be curious about it. Sue Park, have you ever been to Gen Con? So we've got one person in our friend group. So I go with usually Chad and Rebecca. They're the husband and wife friend that live several blocks away. And Larry, who's Rebecca's brother, and Michael, who's Rebecca's cousin. You can see like Rebecca is the sort of core person around this. And I think last year we had like a little online thing. We probably would have skipped this year if not for Rebecca, who sort of rounded everyone up and said we're going this year, and we went, and it was quite fun. It was I thought it might feel a little crazy with COVID, like it might feel risky, but it really didn't. There was lots of space for everything, much fewer people than normal Gen Cons. We've been there about, this might be our sixth year, and went to Gen Con twice up in Milwaukee. Wow, that must have been a while ago. I don't remember when they moved to Indianapolis, but it wasn't recently. It's been a while since it's been there. Gen Con is fun. And the first year that we went, it was, it felt very special. It felt like, wow, all of a sudden here we are with all these people that are so happy, playing games, just having fun in their element with their tribe. And that felt pretty special, and everything was new, and it was fun just to walk around and experience it. I'd say over the years, some of that has worn off, some of the newness of it, which you would expect. But what we do is the 5 of us normally, this year only 4 of us, just pack into one hotel room, and it's like summer camp where we stay up late joking, and we buy much too much snacks and just eat junk food and play games. So this year we did a lot of playing games just among ourselves, since we normally go to the hot games room, which is all the new games that have been released at Gen Con are there. That's like a game library, you could borrow it. This time they had the old library with hundreds and hundreds of old games, but not the new games. So we basically just bought a lot of games blind and played them. And I'll show you a couple here. So I did videos of, I did a video playthrough of Suspects, which is this game here, but the intro case, which is a separate box. I did a video of this game, Echoes, which is an audio game. There's 2 boxes of this. There's the Cocktail, and let's see if I can do this right. There's the Cocktail and the Dancer. I guess I played the Dancer. You basically have these cards. Oops. Have these cards with pictures, and you scan them in an app, and it plays a little sound, a couple seconds of sound related to that, and you have to sort of figure out what order they're in. And I played the first one and gave my thoughts on it. I liked it quite a bit. It's short, it's consumable, it's cheap. It's fun. It's a different experience. And if you've watched this channel, I've pointed out that I didn't realize this was designed by Dave Neal. And Dave Neal is the designer of that. Oh, it's put away somewhere. It's down there. You can't see it anymore. He's the designer of the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective Baker Street Irregulars box, which I love so much. and he's done a new job here. He actually had another game at Gen Con that he didn't pick up. It was sort of a, it's not a 1v any. It's like it's like the game where you're all in a room trying to pretend that you've got a secret identity or trying to figure out everyone's secret deduction or something. Maybe someone can look that up. It looked good, but it looked a little involved, so I might try it later. What else did I pick up at Gen Con? I picked up a couple of non-co-op games. We can see here. Speaking of Dune, here's Dune Betrayal, which is a social deduction game, a little bit like Resistance Avalon. You're sort of picking a team to go out. You don't know what team you're on. You're trying to defend the other person on your team. So it's a little bit like Resistance Avalon, but maybe a little more team focused and a little more tactical. And then two little games here. One called 10, which is a little bit like No Thanks, quite a bit like No Thanks actually, but substantially more complicated. Now we like this a lot, but I would say that I think No Thanks is one of the top brilliant game designs in terms of bang for your buck for simple, elegant rules. And these rules are substantially more involved. And it feels like you're getting sort of the same experience. It's different. I would recommend it, but I think No Thanks is amazing, and I think everyone should try No Thanks. It's very simple, very elegant, but a very fun group game where you're sort of paying to not take a card that's going to hurt you, and it's very clever. And then we played this game, Stick'em, which we loved, which we had a real fun with. And it's a simple trick-taking game. I don't tend to love the idea of trick-taking games, but I like seeing how designers do different things with them. And in this one, you deal out the cards, and everyone picks at the beginning of the game a suit that is poison to them that will count as negative points. And then so you don't know what everyone else's poison suit is, and then you do these tricks, which is a regular trick-taking game. One person leads, plays a card, everyone else plays a card, and then someone will win the trick according to the rules. And you've got complete freedom of what cards to play, but it's actually very fun and funny. You're sort of trying to stick people with the cards you think they don't want. You're trying to decide when to play a card that would help you win a trick. It's actually very cute and clever and fast, and I would highly recommend it. 6 Nimit. I can't remember if I've ever played Nimit, but I will try it. I will try it again based on your recommendation, Sue Park, because I love No Thanks. I think No Thanks is brilliant. Oh, look who's here, Greg. Dune is in. What does that mean, Dune in? Dune is in, yes, Dune is in the theater. Did you miss, Greg, how I was saying we need to buy tickets to AMC before you and Jill start organizing a trip to the Savoy Theater? IMAX, I see, it's already a done deal. Greg loves IMAX. IMAX is only at the Savoy. There's no way around it, it seems. All right. Well, maybe we'll see it twice. Savoy has IMAX. AMC has this Big D thing, but Greg likes the Savoy. Okay, threw me off. All right, we're talking about Dune. Netflix. Oh, good. This is a good question. Assuming Greg's at home. How did Jill like Midnight Mass? Because I thought Midnight Mass, horror movie on Netflix, horror series, was amazing. And I read some negative reviews some little whiny reviews of it. Yeah, I know you don't. That's right. Ask Jill what she thought of Midnight Mass. Did anyone else see Midnight Mass? Because I thought it was quite brilliant. The review I saw was at Vox, and it was sort of complaining. It was complaining that Midnight Mass wasn't a horror movie, which is bullshit. it was a horror movie. The whole thing is this. I won't give any spoilers away. But one complaining that it was not a horror movie. Yeah, it's sort of, I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to ruin it, so I don't want to tell you anything about it. But it's a horror series, a new horror series. It's made by a famous director, but I can't remember their name. And there's a lot of religion in this movie. And the other part of this reviewer was complaining that it was glorifying religion too much. I just thought that completely missed the whole spirit of the show. It reminded me a little bit of Frailty, but only in this one little part of the theme. But I thought it was brilliant. It felt a little bit like a Stephen King miniseries to me, but very, very nicely done and absolutely horror. Greg, what did Jill think of it? I think maybe I'll talk about some of these YouTube channels. I know Greg wants me to be careful. Maybe I'll have to wait till Greg leaves the chat before I say anything about other YouTube channels that could get us in trouble. While we're waiting for Greg to report in what Jill thought of Midnight Mass, here is another game that I picked up at Gen Con that I have real concerns about. And this is in the category of things, problems, YouTube streamer problems. So it's got the glossy stock, which I'm always very suspicious of. That's like the flying frog people, and there's something, I don't know. There's just some warning flags here with this game. There's some warning flags. But it looks a little bit like it's got like a little simulation-based rule set, and I use that term when there's like, it's got a very cool mechanic where your person is got a certain left-right hand, what they're holding in their hands, and your weapons, like you have a sword in your right hand and a dagger in your left hand, and you can change that, and then the sword card tells you what your arc of attack can be. And it feels a little bit like Gloomhaven, kind of tactical, almost miniatures set of rules, but lighter and not a campaign. But what I was saying before was that the designer of the game was there, and I was like, I better not talk to you. I don't want to, because if I don't like the game, I'm going to feel terrible if I say bad things about it. So I remember the name Albion's Legacy, but I don't remember anything about it. But you know, you realize we've been very positive about a lot of games. When we like a game, we tend to talk very highly of it. But there have been a couple games that we really didn't like. And it is, we're pretty hard. We've been harsh on a few games. And you stop to think, like, if you met that person, that would feel very bad saying some bad things about it. But you kind of have to. I mean, there's no, what's the point in doing this if you're not going to talk about the games you don't like, especially if it's a minority of the games that we really don't like, only a few. And, you know, if they were your friend or your brother or sister, you would not be so harsh, and you'd try to give more positive criticism. And we have to just assume that these people are adults and that they won't take it too personally, and we're just one voice. There's a Robin Hood version. You know, there's a new Robin Hood game coming out by the designer Michael Menzel of Legends of Andor, which I've got pre-ordered and I'm quite interested in playing because I have such complicated feelings about Legends of Andor. And we just reviewed a game Where Legends of Andor came up as a reference quite a bit, that was Old Tree, another one of the games that I picked up at, is it behind me somewhere? There it is, Old Tree. Another one of the games I picked up at Gen Con that I really loved. Yeah, so why don't we talk for a second? I mean, this is a good, I guess I was supposed to be off the air a while ago. How long have we been on the air? 30, almost 30 minutes. Sue Park, have you played Legends of Andor? Do you have thoughts on it? I missed, there was just an article somewhere on the internet about looking at one of the early public access kids who used to play video games on his public access channel when he was like 12 years old or whatever, and it was talking about, like now Twitch and YouTube are filled with people who just play video games, girls in their bikinis, and the 12-year-old kids playing video games on Twitch, and how it was such a novelty back in the old days of public access. And there's some good documentaries on Netflix about the early video game competitions for Nintendo or Atari, whatever. And then there was an old like hotline that people could call in and get video game help, like if you couldn't beat a certain level before the internet. This was a hotline you'd call in to get help on beating certain levels, and how these kids had to interview for this job and got tested on all these games. Did they know this level, the secret tricks? Sue Park is talking about Legends of Andor. Vaguely remember you want to fight, but you must not in order to win. Yeah, every time you kill someone, you advance the story track. So if you just killed 5 people, you'd lose, the game would be over. So you have to be very judicious on attacking and killing someone. It's very puzzly. In fact, one of the missions we got to, we must have played it 6, 7, 8 times, and we could not beat it. You had to go down into, I forget what mission it is. It's the one right before the dragon, so like the one right before the last one in Legends of Andor, and like we were getting killed constantly. There's lots of problems with Legends of Andor. It's got a very long setup time. You could lose the game right away based on some bad luck. Since everything is so tight, you have just enough turns to do it, that if you get a little bit of bad luck, there's no point continuing, having to set up. But it's one of the first games I can remember where we were like, this cannot be beat, and we couldn't figure out a way to beat it, and I had to go home and like really study it and figure out, like, it feels like an adventure game. You look at it, you think, oh, I'm playing a dungeon crawler type adventure game where I'm fighting things, but that's a disguise, because it's really a very tight timing puzzle. And it's got some flaws. Some of the randomness is just incompatible with the puzzly nature of it, but it's quite special. Sue Park says spoiler. I don't know if that's what I'm saying is a spoiler or what you're going to say is a spoiler. It is a solvable puzzle. Yeah, I mean, you depend on getting good luck in parts of on all the missions, but some of them more than others, and that can rub you the wrong way, especially given it's such a long setup time. You could play the whole game and then get unlucky, and it just feels wrong. Like, it feels like this is a puzzle game. There shouldn't be these elements of luck that could wildly swing against you. But anyway, that's Legends of Andor. We'll talk about that. There's some expansions for it. A big box expansion, 2 big box expansions for it. One is on the ocean. Another one is somewhere else that we haven't played. Runebound. Yeah, I had Runebound. I got rid of it. I can't remember why. Okay, what else should we talk about? Do you want to talk about some YouTube channels that we watch? Now that Greg's gone, he's just disappeared. Let's talk just a tiny bit about. I won't say anything to get me in trouble, but I will say a little bit about a thought I had about these YouTube channels and what we're doing here. So it's actually very interesting to see all of the YouTube board gamers. There are so many now, and I mean, you've got the people that were doing it from the beginning, like Tom Vassell and Scott Nicholson, And there are a lot of channels now that are clearly doing it as a business and have started it as a business with very high production qualities. And very, what's the right way to say it? Like they've taken it as very seriously as a, and I guess this is true not just in the board game YouTube channels, but in a lot of the YouTube channels. They've started from day one with the idea that they're going to put in enough work and work hard at making this a business, a sustainable business. And it can be done. It's much, I think, the window where it was easy and you just had to do a reasonable job and be consistent is gone. Now you have to be, like most industries, you have to be very lucky and put in huge amounts of work. Anyway, some people are very good at it. Some people have made it a business, and you can see why it would be tempting to want to do that if you could pull it off, make your job something you love. And but boy, you see some of the stress it causes people who are trying to get there and are having trouble. And I just watched a video by someone, sort of heartfelt video. It's you get to see a real human side of people who open themselves up on some of these YouTube channels who talk about their struggles whenever. And this guy was just talking about how he's watching the analytics, and he can see the viewership's going down. He doesn't know what to do, and he's experimenting with different things to see if that makes viewers happier or whatever. And I just thought, wow, this is madness. It's just such a unlikely thing to be able to make your living doing this. And the cost that gets paid for trying to go down that road in terms of your mental health and sanity seems very high. And no, it wasn't John Gets Games. I know him. He's quite good. He's quite well established. No, this was someone else who's not so well established. Anyway, my point was, what if you look at it from the other end and look at, on everything there's costs and benefits. And the benefits of letting go of that idea, the benefits of doing the old way and saying, this is not going to be my living. I'm not going to make money on this. I'm not going to be able to quit my day job. The benefits in terms of freedom and mental health that come with doing that. You feel like making a video, you make a video. I still think there's value in trying to do something well and having some consistency and some regularity and discipline in what you're doing is there. So I'm not advocating for just like doing whatever you want and being lazy about it. But the freedom that comes from not having to worry about that stuff seems more attractive to me. And there's something fun about the idea of not being popular, not getting the views. There's something to be said for that. So there are a couple other YouTube channels I watch. I'll just talk a little bit about. I mentioned the Nerd Shelves. You saw my cup there. They're just a fun couple playing board games and having fun. One of the YouTube channels I watch a lot of, by the way, this is a side note. I was also thinking, this live stream, we've got Sue Park is the only person here. Greg stopped in a little bit, but I can't tell if there's anyone else watching. Maybe not. But, you can just delete these live streams afterwards. So you can have a live stream whenever you want. No one shows up. You just delete it. No one would ever know. And I think, we're doing this for practice. So it doesn't matter if it stays up with one viewer or whatever. No, there's no embarrassment here about lack of viewers. Anyway, the other YouTube channel that I watch a lot is Rob Oren's channel. And I just can't stop watching it. It's like a train wreck. I mean, on one hand, I like how sort of open he is about stuff, but half of it is bullshit. But he's got his fans, he's got his thing going on, he's got his shtick. Half of it is very endearing and curmudgeon-y, and it's refreshing to see the honesty of him being himself. That's half of it. The other half is it's not really. It's half is like talking to the wrestling salesman. So yeah, he kind of is. Rob is great. I mean, a lot of you could. I completely get it, and I appreciate that part of it too. But the other half of it is like, for the 10th time saying you're quitting and saying, I've got the date, it's written down. This is like I have the name of the 50 communists, and right here is that 60-person name, and when I'm ready, I'll reveal the 100-person list. It's not consistent. There's a lot of bullshit going on. So take that for what you will, but I can't stop watching it, and I do appreciate that it's different, and it is its own thing. And then, of course, I watched the Shut Up and Sit Down, whose humor I don't really care for. I like their high production values, but the acting and the humor doesn't do it for me, and other people love it, I know. I do watch, no pun intended, a lot. I think they've got moments where their background is in writing and literature, whatever history, whatever the academic background is, it shows and it comes through, and I appreciate that. Although they do a lot of acting and humor too that I could do without. The other thing I would suggest, if you're sort of like this inside baseball, looking behind the scenes type of thing, is this guy, Sue Parks says, I hate SUSD. It's like you and I are having a discussion, Sue. We'll get back to that in a second. But I was saying, if you like this sort of inside baseball, you might check out the video series that Undead Viking has. It's called The Weekly Album. It's on Wednesdays. It's like a 4-hour Zoom meeting, live stream of Lance, I forget his last name, the Undead Viking guy, who's been reviewing games for a long time and now works for a video game company, still does a little bit of reviewing on the side. But then a couple of other people, YouTubers, and Scott Aldy, who runs Board Game Geek, gets on there with them, and Jeremy Howard, who's another YouTube guy for Man vs. Meatball, and Rado has come on occasionally, but rarely, and Tom Vassell has come on occasionally, rarely, and Bauer from Bauer's Game Corner comes on quite frequently. He was at Gen Con live streaming. I need to delete this. Yeah, I'm talking some stuff. Anyway, so I've watched this occasionally. It almost feels like it's a leaked document, in that they're saying things that Alex Radcliffe is on it a lot, from Board Game Co., who does good videos, a lot of Kickstarter videos that are quite good, and I watch him quite a bit. Anyway, this weekly album, which is like 4 or 5 hours long, there's a lot of inside baseball talk about the YouTube channels and getting views and making money off YouTube previews and stuff. And it almost feels like, is this supposed to be on the air? Am I watching some leaked thing? Because they're talking honestly in ways that none of them ever would on the channel itself, on their channels. It feels a little weird. I'm very impressed that they're putting this on the air. But I'll tell you what, it's also depressing. I find it quite depressing to listen to people talk about like their little tricks for getting people to watch the YouTube videos and how to get Kickstarter previews and stuff. It's they're talking amongst themselves. It's very admirable that they put this live for people to watch, but it feels a little icky. I don't know how to describe it. It may just be my discomfort with talking about money and stuff like that. But there's something a little bothersome about it, and them all talking about knowing each other and the game companies and stuff. Yes, the Mr. Greg says, now you're asking me questions. My involvement is this like Mr. Show pre-taped call. There's a brilliant Mr. Show episode where he's reenacting a public access show which airs a week after it tapes. So like you could call in, but you have to call in on next week's topic, and people keep calling in on the one that's airing, which is a week late. If it's depressing, why do you watch? Yeah, I don't know. I tend to do that. I watch things that I'm not, that make me uncomfortable. So anyway, I haven't been watching it lately. Okay, here we go. Now we've got some bad people in the channel. So we have to figure out how to get rid of them, which we don't really know how to do. And the people who are supposed to be managing it are not online. So we're going to see if we can figure this out. How do we get rid of someone? Oh, maybe they can be gotten rid of, or you're not seeing them. I see it, but maybe you can't see it. Let me know if you see Adolf Hitler typing in the chat channel. If you do, it means they're gone. But it looks like they're not coming through to me. To you. Like, I see them. You don't see them. Okay, so that's all right then. All right, where were we with the YouTube channel? Yeah, so there's that. The other YouTube channel I've talked about before that I really like is Game Night, which is Nikki and Lincoln and Aaron and Dave, and I enjoy watching them. They sort of teach games and they play games. Okay, Sue Park says, I see nothing but me and Greg. Okay, well, that's good. So someone, either YouTube is doing its own thing. Maybe it knows that if someone comes in the chat channel named Adolf Hitler, maybe they're not a real participant. So maybe the algorithm, the AI figured that out. It's probably a safe bet. Okay, that's good. All right, so yeah. All right, we're going a little long, but that's all right. We talked about YouTube channels. We said enough stuff to upset some people. Sue Park, give us a little bit of your background. What is your, you can't watch playthroughs? Why do you not watch playthroughs? You just don't enjoy them? I mean, I get it. It doesn't make that much sense why one would watch them, but occasionally I watch it. Like if I'm on the treadmill or something, I might watch a full playthrough. It's like any other series. You sort of get used to the people. If you miss having a group to hang out with and play with, you might watch it. But give us a little bit of your background. Where are you from? Are you in America? This is sort of a late time zone for people in America. Monday, 12:30, midnight. Rather play than watch. Yeah, I get it. Makes sense. Let me see what else I've got here. While you tell us a little bit of your background. Where are you from? What you can say your age if you want. This video, no one's watching this, so it's all safe. Meanwhile, while we're waiting for that, I'll talk a little bit about the videos that went up recently. So speaking of, like I was just saying how, what's the point in trying to get views for your YouTube channel? But actually I got back from Gen Con with some new games and we made a real effort to get some of those reviews up early. So we played Horrified American Monsters and reviewed it. And I did Suspects and we did Ultry, Echoes. So I've almost gone through most of the games I brought back from Gen Con. There are a couple more. There's, do you see this one, Crimes and Capers? It's like a, it's a co-op sort of murder mystery game. It feels like those dinner party games that supported 6 to 8, which I've played one at my house before, and we had fun. So I think we'll try to play that. Maybe we won't film it for channel, but maybe we'll review it. Sue Park says he's from Chicago originally, but now in Vegas. Okay. one of the videos that just got uploaded and is waiting for YouTube to process it in the 4K, which takes days, was a playthrough of Pandemic Hemispheres, which is the game, print and play game that you can combine two Pandemic Hot Zones. Pandemic Hot Zone is the sort of smaller cut down family game of Pandemic. So we're going to try to wrap up some of our videos that have been waiting to be finished. And so hopefully Pandemic Hemispheres will get done soon. And then we want to finish up our complete playthrough of Paleo. We've got 2 more modules. There are already people on the channel complaining that they're waiting for the last episodes of Paleo. So I'm hoping we can play through those and maybe make a quick video talking about our thoughts after the campaign is over. And then we're halfway through the initiative, which is over there, right there, which Greg and I both really like a lot, but it's hard to get played. And we've got a lot of games left of it. And it kind of feels like, well, we've started. So we should finish it. But we do need to get a couple more of those out, so people who have been watching it, the few people who have been following it, don't get stuck halfway through. Sue Park says, burned out on Pandemic. Well, have you played Legacy Seasons 1, 2, and now the latest one, 0? And you know, there's a new Pandemic spin-off set in World of Warcraft called The Lich King, which is not yet available at retail, but some reviewers have early copies of it that looks interesting. Yeah, I think Pandemic is the possibly the best board game ever made in terms of just the genius of the design. And Greg and I've written up many pages of thoughts on it, because we've been talking about, Greg and I played around a little bit with the idea of designing a board game, and my thoughts are, like, the Pandemic Legacies are the best board games ever made and the best experience I had playing board games. And so thoughts on why that is, what is so special about Pandemic. And I do think Pandemic should be taught in graduate courses on game design, because there are some brilliant things going on there that are sort of self-balancing. Season 1, I don't understand why, like, Season 1 and Season 2 were the most amazing things. It's just, I always wonder why the people that it didn't strike that way. For me, that's was just a great experience. The other games that we're going to try to wrap up, one of them is Under Falling Skies, which is behind me here. And I thought that would make an interesting new kind of series called Does It Co-op, where we play solo games or games where there's just a variant that's co-op, like the new Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition has a co-op variant. So that series will be for games that weren't meant to be played co-op, but to look at how well does it play as a co-op. And so I hope that'll be the first video in that series, and we'll talk about, you know, does it work as a co-op, and what are some of the drawbacks of trying to play it that way. What else? I thought I would talk a little bit about these Adobe extensions that I've been coding to help do editing. So I run a website called donationcoder.com, where I'm a computer programmer. I put up my software there, and I've got lots of software for Microsoft Windows and some other stuff, some open source stuff. You can see some of my board game related stuff. There's a print and play Python stuff for Codenames Duet. I've done some tabletop simulator mods for The Crew and Cahoots. And so recently I've been writing Adobe Premiere extensions to help do editing, and those will probably be up and available for people on Donation Coder at some point. Ash's card game. I don't know it. I don't know it that well. Every once in a while I try to get into these card games. Keyforge was the last one that I tried to get into, and it just didn't. I really liked Star Realms a lot. I played that with my younger niece, and that was sort of light and fun. I tried to play Keyforge with my wife, and it just didn't take. There's just too much. It's too much you have to know about the other person's deck and stuff. She just didn't like it, and it didn't quite do it for me. It felt a little swingy, unbalanced. So it's not quite for me. I loved Summoner Wars, and the new edition of Summoner Wars is tempting. But that's as close as I've come to those kinds of games. Anyone other than Sue Park? Well, not that I'm happy to keep talking to you, Sue, but Sue Park, is that your full real name? Maybe you don't want to give that out. I don't know. It sounds Korean to my ears. I don't know if that's true. I just watched a Korean show on Netflix called Squid Game. I've seen some great Korean murder detective movies, but it's been a while. I forget what the name of that great one was. I'd like to see more of those. Squid Game was okay, a little over the top. I guess we're going to go for an hour on air is the idea instead of half hour. Random screen name. Okay. So we're going to be wrapping up soon. I'll give you a little reminder of what the plan is here. We'll wrap up this video in 5 minutes or so, and then I'll end this live stream, which has just been me talking to Sue Park. And then I'll take a 10-minute break, and maybe by 1 a.m. Central Time, I'll restart up a new stream and play the first case of Suspects, which could take an hour. It'll take more than an hour. Probably take at least 2 hours. And that's a spoiler mystery game. You shouldn't watch it if you're going to play it, but if you're not going to play it, or you're willing to give up the first game in the series, you can watch me play it and try to solve it and help me. Otherwise, watch it after you finish it and play it yourself, and you can see how we compared. So we'll talk for a little bit longer. I'll just sit here and drink my tea for a little bit. Sue Park is going to sleep. It was great having you here. It's nice to have someone to talk to. I appreciate you stopping by. If anyone else is online, now is the time to talk. But we'll go for a couple more minutes. We'll just sit here and drink tea. There's nothing. YouTube does not charge you by the minute. There's no cost to just sitting here drinking tea. In fact, I wouldn't mind a YouTube filter that let me filter on people that are doing things like, wouldn't mind filtering on YouTube videos that have more silence, have more people just sitting, not feeling like they have to fill up the airtime. Anyone else on the channel want to be heard other than Adolf Hitler? You have to wonder if I said that too many times, and if YouTube is going to start deciding this video should not be on the air. I just have to make sure I don't mention anything about ivermectin or COVID or vaccines. This would be the time if someone wants to. You don't realize how much people who are just starting out channels are like glomming on to comments and changing their whole life schedule around the few people that comment on their videos. Like now, if you say something to Tom Vassell or Rodney Smith, they're like, I don't have time to read these comments. But if you post on our channel, like, please play this game, you're likely to get a good response. Like someone's complained about where's the new episode of Paleo, and now I'm thinking, oh, we got to do the new episode of Paleo. Secret Hitler. Wait, Secret Hitler? No, it's Black Orchestra that you're talking about. Black Orchestra. I have not played it. I want to play it. It's a co-op. It looks quite good. They just put out a new reprinting. I want to play it. I mean, it looks cool. It's a little bit of pick up and deliver and some real historical pieces to it. You've got Himmler. You've got all the people that you have to kill and moving around. It looks good. Black Orchestra, yeah. And Greg makes fun of me because we've got someone in my old game group, Mindy. And she's a very dear person and a good friend and a wonderful person. And she's got like an incredibly huge board game collection. And Greg makes fun of me because occasionally I haven't played games with the board game group in a while. And actually, they just started meeting up again, or some of them did, on a meetup in at Harvest Market. This big sort of Whole Foods. Anyway, not important. The important point is, I occasionally, in addition to talking to Mindy over email, occasionally, sometimes I'll contact Mindy and I'll say, "Hey, do you have this game? Because I'd love to borrow it to put it on the channel." And Greg is always like, how can you be emailing her about her board games and not to play them with Mindy, but to borrow them for the channel? And yeah, I get it. I just hope that Mindy understands that, I found that I only like to play co-op games 2-player, and Greg and I've got lots of people that I really like, and but I'm very particular about playing co-op board games, not competitive board games. I'll play with anyone, but co-op board games, I have a very tiny number of people that I'll play them with, and Greg is one, and my other friend, my oldest friend Zach Brown, is the other. And I try not to play co-op games with other people. It just doesn't work for me, and I'm hoping that Mindy is just happy that someone's playing her games. Last chance, someone else in the comments wants to say hello. We can talk about other games. We can talk about movies, food. It's good to have some silence. It's like I was thinking there should be a rule, like, in certain sports, tennis, volleyball, you have to win by a certain number of points. It's like the YouTube live stream has to end with a certain amount of silence. You can't just end it right after someone comments or after you've said something. So we're going to sit here till we get a couple minutes of silence. Can you imagine if you're watching this, you're wondering what is going on? What is wrong? I can actually see, I realized in the laptop view I can see that there are actually a couple people watching. You're just here for the experience. People don't realize how interesting the public access TV channels used to be, where they were just so amateurish. People filling dead time. There's something to be said for being unprofessional. So as a reminder, I'm going to end this stream in about a minute, and then we'll go off the air for 15 minutes or so. Then I'll come back and I'll play Suspects. I'm actually quite curious to see if it gets better, if the mystery is any better. I almost picked up on eBay the Sherlock Holmes case that hasn't been reprinted yet, Adventures by Gaslight. It's quite expensive on eBay, but someone's selling a copy along with one of the others for like $80-90, which is still pretty good for as far as it as normally costs, but just seems too high to pay for that. But I've heard that it's an experience. It's not like there's a reason it hasn't been reprinted. Although I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't get around to reworking it and reprinting it. But that it's worth a try, and I'm curious to try it. I'm curious to see what the experience is like. So maybe I'll pick that up. Last chance for real. Nikki Vallen's new game hit Kickstarter, Artisans of the Splendent Veil. And I'm curious about it. I don't know if I'm, Kickstarter prices curious about it. And it's a long campaign game that's like 50 hours. That's the big thing, that it feels like a real commitment. But I just finished posting my complete 12-part playthrough of Legacy of Dragonholt, which I didn't love, but I thought there was lots of interesting stuff there, and you cannot, like, the amount of work that Nikki Vallen's put into it was substantial, and so I expect that to come through with the new game, and I hope to try it at some point, but it's not soloable. It really does require two people. So, but I look forward to hearing about it. Let's circle back. We don't have to end this right away. Let's circle back a little bit to the YouTubers thing. So there is something really distasteful in the YouTube board game reviewing scene, as it were. And it has to do with sort of incentives. You can see the videos that get the most views are videos about brand new games. Games on Kickstarter, games that haven't been released yet. So reviewers getting early copies of games is huge. It's like the most important thing if you want to become popular and get lots of views and subscribers. And you can see the problem with that, the incentive problem, which is that if you say bad things about a game, the publishers won't send you the early copies. There are only a handful of people on this planet, Tom Vassell being the main one, that could get early copies of games, even though publishers know that there's a reasonable chance he won't like it. No one else has that luxury. Everyone else, if you start saying things about a board game about early copies of board games that you don't like, you will not get sent those early copies. And so all of the incentive structure, whether you believe people are doing it sort of doing it on purpose, that they're purposely slanting their reviews, making them positive so that they'll get early copies, or if you just believe a sort of evolutionary system is in place where if you are negative about games, then you'll get killed off because you won't get sent the games, and only those people who love every game, like Rado, will get sent the early games. But essentially, you can't get your channel to popularity without gushing over the early release games. So it's very hard to take those early release previews, Kickstarter previews, very seriously. You're doing it to watch the parts, but it's troubling. It's a whole troubling system, and it encourages the worst behavior of reviewers in terms of just being positive about games that you really have no business being positive over. And Rado did a video or a discussion at one point where he said if he gets sent a game early, they all get sent games, all the popular channels get sent games early. If he ever doesn't like a game, he just contacts the publisher and says, oh, I didn't like this game, so that video is not going to be on the channel, and they don't pay him for it, or they pay him for it and he doesn't air it. That's how those paid previews work. You'll never see a preview of a game where a channel didn't like it. It would kill off their golden goose of getting early copies. So it's troubling, and it just means don't take them that seriously, those early previews. And the best of the Kickstarter preview people will tell you that up front. And then there are some channels that don't get the early copies. One of my favorites is King of Average Guy, who buys his own games and can be negative about them, and he's supported via his audience on Patreon, and I do think that it's the better way for this scene to work. It would be better if the audience paid for the product for them. You know, the old saying about if you're not the customer, then you're the product, something like that. I think it would be better if we all directly paid the producers of these things to let them be independent and not mess with their motivations and incentives. Okay, let's sign off. It was good speaking to everyone. the two people that are in the stream now, that's it. I've got two streams, I've got two computers doing it, so that's it. I'm completely alone. It's just me saying goodbye to myself. And we'll see you on the next video. Let's just switch out of here. Okay, guys. We'll see you.